Well, as expected, the government announced the biggest shake-up to welfare system in a generation, as it hopes to shave $5 billion off the welfare budget.
Our campaigners, such as Baroness Tanni Grey-Thompson, from whom we just heard, say the proposed cuts will force disabled people into poverty. Minister for Social Security and Disability, Stephen Timms, joins us now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Jackie Darlington, who currently receives the lower rate of PIP, says she thinks she's going to lose out, and she's not even sure if her son, Joshua, who has Down syndrome and limited communication skills, cannot work. She's not even sure if he's guaranteed to continue receiving PIP. Why can't you tell people right now who are still so anxious about the cuts what's going to happen to their benefits?
Well, what we set out yesterday was a plan to fix a broken system. Proper employment support, hundreds of thousands of people we know at the moment out of work on health and disability grounds who'd love to be in a job if they had the support to make it possible for them. We'll be providing that support. We're going to remove the discouragement to work that's been created in the benefit system by changes over the last 15 years or so. At the moment, there's a big prize if you can be found incapable ever of working. We want instead to support people on a pathway back into work, which may take some time, but the support needs to be there. And we're also making changes to personal independence payment to make sure that it's sustainable for the long term.
So
that exactly people that like those you've just referred to are supported beyond the next couple of years.
So that's all. Sorry to interrupt you. That's all very general strategy, and what people who are on these benefits needed to hear yesterday was the detail, and they didn't get it. And their anxiety continues. They were hoping, at least yesterday, for some kind of closure over their fears, but they haven't got it. Why couldn't you have been clearer about what this is going to mean to people?
Well, actually, the details around personal independence payment were in the statement yesterday. People were very anxious, I think, when the previous government said they were going to replace PIP with vouchers. We've made it absolutely clear we're not going to do that. We're not going to freeze it. We're not going to means test it. But we are making sure that it's going to be there for the long term to provide support for people who depend on it, because it's got a very, very important job to do. And, you know, if the rate of increase of costs for the system over the last 5 years, if that carried on into the future, it would put the whole system at risk. We've made changes to ensure that it's going to be there for the long term.
OK, can I just establish then, in these two particular cases, Jackie's son Joshua will never be able to work. He gets PIP. Will it be cut?
Well, I don't know about Joshua's circumstances, but what I would say is that...
So for an individual who'll never be able to work, will you cut their PIP?
The question of PIP eligibility will depend on the outcome of the assessment. Now, no change is going to be made at all until November of next year, November 2026. And then this new assessment will kick in at the first regular assessment that's due to take place after that time. Now, my guess would be, in the case of somebody with the circumstances that you've described, they are likely to score at least 4 points on one of the daily living activities, which means that their benefit will continue to be paid. And indeed, because of the changes we've announced yesterday, people can be much more confident about the long-term availability of this benefit.
Now, you yourself, 15 years ago, were the target of a homicidal knife attack at your MP's surgery, which you just about managed to survive. We'll come on to that in a second for reasons which we'll explain. But in the meantime, based on that, can we ask you what your position is on these young killers who are being allowed access to phones and the internet when they're in young people's institutions or in prison? We had the mother of a 16-year-old boy, Matt Dixon, on the show with us earlier. A very, very moving interview. Her son was stabbed to death, and her killer has since been posting absolutely disgusting rap lyrics online, explicitly glorifying and boasting about the attack on that day. But the prison service will not tell Max's mother how that happened or if the killer is going to be punished. They won't even speak to her. What's your position on that?
Well, that's not a report that I've heard previously. I am very concerned to hear that that's the position, and I'll be very happy to raise it with my colleagues in the Ministry of Justice.
Good.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I had a conversation with Max's mum, Leanne, after her interview on air, and I did say that you would take, I suspected you would take an interest and help us investigate this story. The spokesperson for Prisons and Probation said, "We work with the police to investigate and remove harmful content and punish any offender who is caught using a phone or social media in prison, including with extra time behind bars." So there are two issues here. Firstly, how the offender was able to get a phone and access to social media in prison, and she wants an answer to that, and none has so far been forthcoming directly to her. And the second is, she feels like this shows the killer has no remorse, even though, of course, they're behind bars, you know, for the offence of murder, and there is a minimum term of 23 years. But she says this is adding insult to injury. Why is she having to report, and other people having to report this to the prison? Why isn't monitoring being done? And also, please help her understand whether and how long the punishment, the extra time, might be. And so can we reassure her that you will take that up?
I've got every sympathy with Maxine in that situation.
Leanne.
And if you Leanne, I beg your pardon.
That's okay.
And if you let me have the details, I'll happily take it up with my colleagues.
Well, we will certainly do that, and we ourselves on this programme will be contacting the prison service today to try and get some answers out of them, because it's clearly unacceptable, isn't it? Can we ask you, how are you doing 15 years on from this terrible event when you were at your surgery just after the election, and this woman stabbed you, I think, twice in the stomach? She's now in prison, due to come out quite soon. How are you managing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I had to be rushed to hospital at the time, but St Bart's Hospital did a great job in patching me up, and I've been fine ever since.
And I understand, because you've said this publicly, that your intention is to go and see the woman who attacked you, because you say you want to forgive her, but you can't forgive her until you've had some kind of dialogue.
Yeah, well, I was in a restorative justice process, which I had hoped would lead to a meeting. In fact, it hasn't done for whatever reason, and so I suspect now that conversation won't be taking place.
How do you feel about the prospect of her imminent release?
Well, she served her time. You know, there is a thorough process that goes on, I know, when a release is impending. I've got every confidence that'll be done properly. As I understand it, she's been in some ways a moral prisoner. So I presume that once her minimum term has been served in full, as it will have been, I think, later on this year, that'll be a minimum 15 years term, then I think the likelihood is that she will be given the OK for release.
We seem to be in an era, don't we, a new era of homicidal attacks on our MPs. Are you satisfied with the level of security that people like you have?
Well, there's been a lot changed in the wake of some of the terrible attacks that we've seen over the last few years. I've made some changes myself. We're given quite a lot more support now on security than was the case before. And I certainly feel very comfortable now doing the job that I'm doing. But I do think we need to make sure that MPs generally are able to feel comfortable carrying out the very important jobs that all of us have to do.
Stephen Timms, we appreciate your time this morning and sharing that with us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.